Nigeria's apex intervention agency for tertiary education, Tertiary Education Trust Fund, TETFund, Thursday rolled out the drums to celebrate the 10th anniversary of its establishment. At a ceremony in Abuja, the Nigerian capital, accolades underscored the strides and achievements recorded by the agency in the past 10 years. Among these was the disclosure that the Tertiary Education Trust Fund, TETFund, has in 10 years of existence boosted Nigeria's tertiary education subsector by sponsoring over 30,000 academic staff of public tertiary institutions for both master's and PhD postgraduate programs, thereby increasing the number of academic personnel qualified to teach from 20% to between 70 to 80%. Chairman of the event to celebrate the 10th anniversary of the Tertiary Education Trust Fund, TETFund, Pro-Chancellor of the University of Benin and founder of Eko Hospital, Dr. Sonny Kuku, stressed the need to reinforce the achievements by accelerated and improved funding of tertiary education in Nigeria. Dr. Kuku tasked government at all levels to address funding gaps in education, noting the need for accelerated funding of the Nigerian tertiary education system for optimum delivery. He specifically sued for the reintroduction of study grants, loans and bursaries for students of tertiary institutions. Kuku commended what he described as the laudable role of TETFund in repositioning the Nigerian tertiary education system in the last 10 years. He extolled the paradigm shift initiative of the Executive Secretary, Professor Suleiman Elias Bogoro, in discharging his responsibility.
The pain of our universities is the fact that the funding is very poor. And I believe that this is so because the situation that used to be and the situation in other places all over the world has been reversed. When I was in university about 100 years ago, I hope you please clap for me. We were made to pay fees. But my classmates, nobody amongst us paid the school fees from his own pocket. The fees were paid by either the federal government scholarship or state scholarship or local government scholarship, or bursaries, loans and all. The important thing about this is that when you do that, you then give the institutions, they know exactly the amount of money will come and they can distribute them according to their own specialties, the way they want to do it. And it is not impossible for this to happen. It just needs political will. And I think the message will be carried back to the minister. It will also be carried back to the legislature and of course the president. All we need to do is to know how much it costs to train a student. And every student will have to pay that or be paid for. And I think anywhere in the world, somebody pays for them. So apart from this intervention fund, I'm saying to all our tiers of government to start a scholarship fund and supplement it with a loan fund. That's a loan. If you cannot get a scholarship because of how good you are doing, you can get a loan, you can get a bursary. And something that we need to encourage universities to do is to have work study for our students so that they can work and go to school. That is what happens in most parts of the world.
In an opening remark, Chairman Board of Trustees of TETFund, Kashim Ibrahim Imam, said the task of revamping education demands a collective approach of well-meaning individuals and groups.
For the next decade, we are targeting an intervention fund of 1 trillion naira per annum. And I want to assure you that it is very much doable, it is achievable, and we are determined to take practical measures to make sure that we attain this goal. It's only appropriate for me at this juncture to appeal to all stakeholders, starting with the President of the Federal Republic, the Honorable Minister of Education, and the staff of the Ministry of Education, the National Assembly, because they need to pass the enabling laws.
Former chairman of TETFund and guest speaker at the event, Dr. Musa Babayo, went down memory lane on the efforts that led to the evolution of the agency and concluded that the journey has been long and tedious, but resulting in strides worthy of celebration.
Immediately after our inauguration and the first inaugural board meeting in 2009, we clearly established the pathway. And I knew from that time that the vehicle that we had, which was the ATF Establishment Act, was structurally flawed, and something needs to be done to make it more effective and more efficient in the delivery of the core mandate areas of the fund. But then we had a snag. We felt it was necessary for us to reform the organization itself in order to make it much more effective, much more focused, so that it will support the Board of Trustees and the management in the delivery of this important national duty. The Board of Trustees Committee on Appointment, Promotion, and Discipline, FED&C, was charged with that responsibility to come up with a new organogram for the consideration of the board. We focused first on the Directorate of Education Support Services. We broke it into pieces and created academic staff training and development in order to give it special focus to achieve the goal of capacity building in the tertiary education segment.
Man of the moment and executive secretary of TETFund, Professor Suleiman Elias Bogoro, told the gathering that part of the drive to boost human capacity in tertiary institutions in the country has seen the agency sponsoring over 30,000 lecturers for postgraduate programs in the last 10 years and greater impact with its other interventions aimed at improving content in the subsector.
It is because of that, and with deliberate emphasis for PhDs, which is a minimum requirement for a lecturer in the Nigerian universities, that when before 2015, only 40% of lecturers in Nigerian universities had PhD. With TETFund intervention, that percentage moved to 60% in 2015. And I can tell you proudly so, that at the moment, the percentage across our universities for PhD holders is between 75% to 100%. For some of the universities, like the University of Ibadan, that is a research university. And of course, most of the first generation universities. And I can tell you also, I still remember October last year, when the University of Ibadan hit the first 500 by ranking in the world. The Vice Chancellor said, we are celebrating that good news that came this week. And I'm happy, ES of TETFund, to tell you, this has significantly been achieved because of TETFund support. A breakdown of the sponsorship indicates as follows. The tables are there, and I'm sorry I won't bore you with the micro details, but they are there on your screen anyway. Still, in a bid to boost human capacity in our institutions, the fund has sponsored over 68,000 academic and non-academic staff of public tertiary institutions to attend local and overseas conferences as indicated in the table below. The table is there. TETFund has also been providing support for teaching practice in federal and state colleges of education across the country. So far, the fund has supported over 71,000 lecturers under its Teachers Supervision Program. Considering the vital role that libraries play in educational institutions, TETFund has also allocated substantial funds to public, federal, and state tertiary institutions, Still, in a bid to boost human capacity in our institutions, the fund has sponsored over 68,000 academic and non-academic staff of public tertiary institutions to attend local and overseas conferences as indicated in the table below. The table is there. TETFund has also been providing support for teaching practice in federal and state colleges of education across the country. So far, the fund has supported over 71,000 lecturers under its teachers' supervision program. Considering the vital role that libraries play in educational institutions, TETFund has also allocated substantial funds to public, federal, and state tertiary institutions for the acquisition of library books, e-library resources, and academic manuscript development to books in order to promote and support research, teaching, and learning. So far, the fund has procured over 2 million books for use in our libraries, 152,844 e-resources, and 380,778 equipment and furniture distributed across public tertiary institutions in Nigeria.
Other speakers at the 10th anniversary celebration were Governor of Kebbi State, Abubakar Atiku Bagudu, and the Permanent Secretary, the Federal Ministry of Education, Architect Sonny Echono, who represented the Minister of Education, Malam Adamu Adamu. Both extolled the vibrant and robust Midas touch and inputs of TETFund that have helped considerably in salvaging tertiary education in Nigeria, which according to them would have been in shambles.
It takes a critical amount, a minimal amount of money to train someone in for any qualification, whether it is NCE, HND, or a degree. And therefore, if we compute and we know what it takes to train someone, maybe a medical doctor, and if the university is training 100, we know how much then funding it requires. And if we do that, what follows is sensible that somebody must pay the bill. Somebody, whether it is the proprietor of the institution, the government, the state government, or a combination of both. But what we can't ignore is that it takes a critical mass of funding to achieve a certain result. And I think as we move forward with tertiary education fund, that is the one thing they can help lead. There is a need for our society to be consciously abreast of the funding gap that is existing in our educational sector, because it will help us mobilize public support in order to mobilize such resources. And it will help political leaders to make the argument and to be supported.
So as TETFund continues to transform itself, to set higher targets, to rejig its processes and systems, identifying new areas of focus in research, for example, in leveraging on technology to improve delivery of curricula, in enhancing its relevance to the immediate environment. And again, we must congratulate TETFund for taking the lead with your molecular laboratories in the advent of COVID, and how testing was boosted in this country thanks to the contributions of TETFund and others. I believe it goes without saying that such an organization that had made such impact in a short period demands the type of respect, the type of recognition, the type of appreciation that the entire country has come to accord to TETFund. Clearly, your vision of being a top-rate intervention agency, even so early in life, for an institution 10 years is very early, has already been accomplished.
The 10th anniversary celebration was rounded off with awards of excellence to deserving dignitaries and institutions. TETFund is the apex intervention agency of government in Nigeria, set up to bolster tertiary education in the country. It began as Education Tax Fund (ETF) under the Education Tax Act 7 of 1993, later amended in 1998 to become Education Trust Fund, which was later changed to Tertiary Education Trust Fund following an Act of Parliament in 2011 to emphasize its scope of operations. This subsequent change in the legal instrument for its operation came with renewed focus on development and rehabilitation of infrastructure alongside research and development in public tertiary institutions in Nigeria. Indeed, the agency has become a global brand as its concept and mode of operation is being replicated in other parts of Africa.